Hi folks, my name is Mike Dobbs. I'm your host here on Government Matters over Focus Springfield. And today we're going to be talking about something that is, I think, one of the most important aspects of living in Springfield, and that is our library system. You know, for a city of 155,000, I'm sticking to 155,000 by the way, we have a tremendous library system that offers a huge variety of services and opportunities for people. It's really essential. And so our guest here today is Patrick Markey, who is the president of the Springfield Library Foundation, right? I got that right? And Matt Blumenfeld, who is the executive director of the foundation. So we're going to... Blumenfeld. You know, I keep thinking of the Connecticut senator.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
We like.
Sorry.
Different last name, no relation.
And I even wrote it, but I didn't write it in ink. Okay, so Blumenfeld. Well, if I make the mistake again, folks, I'm 71, okay, so I'm sorry. Gentlemen, I still have my library card that I got in first grade. My mother saved everything, and when I cleaned up my mom's house, there is my library card, and it's currently on the desk that I write on in my writing room.
And have we checked up on that to see whether you owe any fines?
I am not admitting anything, but no. My mother would have taken care of any fines many years ago. But the fact of the matter is, I remember that day as being so significant because, you know, to little Mikey Dobbs, getting your own library card, that's like one of the steps toward adulthood. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. You know,
so you have to sign in script in order to get your library card?
Of course. Yeah. I mean,
I remember that.
A dying art.
So I'm very happy about the fact that the Library Foundation exists because it plays an absolutely essential role in keeping our library strong. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I also want to get into a little bit of the history of some of the buildings and stuff because I find that fascinating. But Patrick, how do you describe the work of the foundation to people who are unfamiliar with it?
So the foundation is the fundraising arm of the library department, and it's a private, not-for-profit corporation, and it is also the receptacle of gifts to the library system. So if you die and you've got millions of dollars, we hope that you've named us in your will, and that money will come to the foundation, which manages, and with the assistance of professional investors and advisors, invests the money for us so that it grows over time. The Library Foundation has its origin back when the city took over the library system, which was under Charlie Ryan's mayorship. Back at that time, there was what's called the Library and Museums Association, and it served the role that the Library Foundation now serves, but for the libraries and the museums. And there was, there's a bit of a crisis that brought Charlie Ryan to the position of mayor, got him to, people said, you should be mayor again because he took up this library issue. The Library and Museums Association was a great caretaker, in particular of the museums, but they were to the point where they were thinking they should close and were proposing to close many of the branch libraries. So there was a struggle, and it turned into a legal struggle. I happened to be city solicitor at the time. In the end, there was sort of a divorce, and out of the Library and Museums Association came two entities: the Library Association, which is us, and the Museums Association. And then there was a little fight over who gets what money because it was all in one pot. And Barbara Garvey was instrumental in that. Barbara Garvey and Mrs. Ryan, actually, and Mrs. Sears went through all the gifts with the help of Emily Bader, who was the library director at the time. She did all the research and said, here's all the wills, here's all the trusts. And those women went through them and marked off looks like this person intended to give to a library, this person intended to give to a museum. And eventually there was a meeting of the minds and the money was split up to the two different association foundations. So that's how the library, how we came into being.
And that was in 2004, 2005.
Yeah, that's right. So ever since then, our organization has managed the money, and we've actually gotten around to raising money now. Our biggest capital campaign was to build a branch in East Forest Park, and that's how we met. Matt, Charlie identified, I think maybe Molly first, right?
Yep, Molly Fogarty brought us in.
Had come across Matt and his organization through other library projects that she had heard of. Anyway, Charlie recommended him. We brought him on board to help us raise $2 million, which we did successfully. And then we thought enough of them to say, actually, we need a pro to help us with the day-to-day stuff too, not just the fundraising. So that's how Matt came on.
Because I remember doing stories and talking to you about fundraising efforts and how they were going and that type of thing.
Yeah, so it was wonderful, and as Pat said, I have a lot of experience with libraries, and community libraries in Massachusetts there's a wide variety of types. What we have in Springfield, where we have the library as a municipal department and then a supporting organization, the foundation, is not unusual. So when I came on and ran the capital campaign for Promise Realized campaign for East Forest Park, that was just a wonderful experience. Built community. There's so much attachment, particularly in that neighborhood for that library. I think it's definitely the busiest branch in the city. It's gorgeous, and people who walk in are so surprised at what an amazing facility we've developed. And so, as that campaign wound down, we started having, I was asked, so what should we do? Because we, as Pat mentioned, we're the holder of, and, in a very, and that's our solemn duty, is to follow the donor's intent. And so our corpus is something like $9 million that we have professionally managed. Some of those funds are permanently restricted, some are not, but our goal is to increase our level of support of the libraries each year while also growing the corpus. And so getting new monies in is important, but also stewarding and being really prudent in our investment strategy. So I was, so I've been raising money for 35 years, and to be on the other side of the table of working with library staff to see what exciting things they have in mind that we can fund that are not part of the municipal budget, that's really, really the rewarding thing in this work.
Now, how does the Friends Group for the library fit in between the city department and the foundation?
So you want to take?
Sure, I'll take that. Yeah, so Friends Groups, exist in almost every library system in the Commonwealth. Here in Springfield, our Friends Group is very, they do wonderful work, but their fundraising role has diminished over time, and so we look to them as volunteers, as ambassadors, as advocates, so we work hand in hand with them. So for instance, we're funding the summer reading program this year, which is going to be vastly expanded thanks to our financial support, the Friends' financial support, and some corporate supporters. Right. So the Friends are working with us to support that endeavor so that we can spread the good word all throughout Springfield.
We should tell you, Mike, also about the other entity that has anything to do with the libraries, and that's the Library Commission.
Yes.
Steve Carey is the chair of that.
He's that guy over there.
Yeah, he's the guy behind the camera, I think. So anyway, the Library Commission is like the commission that oversees the municipal department.
Right.
So there's somebody, Molly Fogarty, who's in charge of the library department. She brings things before the Library Commission, and they vote them up and down, and they're a sounding board, and they give advice. They can't manage the money because municipal governments can't do fundraising of that sort. So one of the reasons the Library Foundation was created was so if you wanted to give to the library, to your library branch, well, if you gave them money, it would eventually make its way into the general fund and it wouldn't be restricted.
So then it would have to go like any money in the general fund
Yeah.
in terms of being allocated, approved by the city council.
It's more cumbersome, right?
It's much more cumbersome. This is a, and I think, as time has evolved, the notion of leaving money to the municipality versus a private 501c3 has changed. And so I think, and that's why, what we do is very, very clear. We will steward money. We will make sure that we'll follow donor intent. If you want to create a fund that will be a spend down, we can do that. If you want something that will be permanently endowed, we've got some great examples of that, both over the last few years and then going back 150 years. That notion of having a private entity with that single mission of stewarding and growing that corpus to help the library, I think is much more palatable to individuals when they think about their estate plans or just making a gift. The other thing is, like, for annual funding, that's, it's hard for a municipality. They do the tax levy, right? So that's the annual fundraising that they do. We are able to be nimble and do an annual fund drive for small, medium-sized gifts, and then we'll tell people what we've done with their money.
Right. Right. Is this arrangement fairly typical for communities in Massachusetts? The library is a municipal department. There's a commission that oversees their activities, et cetera, but then there is another entity, in this case a foundation, so that if somebody wants to create an endowment for a branch, or somebody simply wants to say, here, I won Powerball and I want you guys to have it.
We're waiting for that person.
So is this sort of a typical kind of arrangement in many communities?
It is, and it's becoming more common, because it used to be that a lot of times there were private libraries, even though with a public purpose. And that over the last 100 years has evolved so that most of them have become municipal departments. And then there's a 501c3 that's a friends group, and oftentimes another 501c3 that is a library foundation. So we're kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of respects. Worcester has a strong library foundation, Boston as well, but I think we're right up there. You can see it in the impact that we're having. So that's definitely the trend of having this entity that is there to support the library, but is outside of the municipality.
Right. And the expectation is that the city continues to fund the daily operations, and we come in with some extras.
Sure.
Which we've done.
Well, as we found out, especially in the pandemic, the value of the library is almost, you cannot underestimate it in any way.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. A lot of people, when we were creating the foundation and building a library in East Forest Park, would say, books, who needs a library? I can get it on Amazon, I can get it for free online, or people just don't read anymore. But during the pandemic in particular, the importance of publicly accessible Wi-Fi became apparent. And I've always felt, regardless of how much people are reading and whether they're reading books or reading Kindles, in our city at least, the branch library is the capital of the neighborhood. It's a point of civic pride. And it's, I say this to Mayor Sarno, and he's receptive to this. The library in a place like Springfield is one of the areas the government can point to and say, this is what I'm doing for you. This is what I'm doing for my constituents. I got you more library hours. Most of what the city does is sort of taken for granted. We turn on the water and we get water with utilities. We turn on the light and we get light. And we don't really think about who's responsible for that. But I think we do think about who built this library for us.
Right. I did a little research here. And, our library goes back to 1857 when the City Library Association was founded. Yeah. And this was not part of the municipal government of Springfield. Right. It was a group of private individuals who decided we needed a library. And in 1863, they built the first central library. Now, when I was doing my postcard history book of Springfield, I didn't really know that what the story was. And it's an amazing engineering story, because this beautiful brick building that's up there at the quadrangle, and they literally had volunteers take all the books out of it to make it lighter, hoisted it up, put it on, I imagine, logs on poles, and pushed it into the center of the quadrangle, and then reloaded the books so it was still a functioning library. And then they built the edifice that we know today, which was opened in 1912. And of course, a few years back, you did some tremendous work there with refurbishing the rotunda the way it was original. And then there was that beautiful mural that was put up in one of the big reading rooms there that had been discovered. It had been done years ago and taken down, and now it's so we've had this relationship with a library in this community for many, many, many decades. And as you say, the branch libraries, it almost defines a neighborhood.
It does.
You know, it's like, this is the place that you go to first. And then you'll go to the central library perhaps, because maybe they've got something that you need there that you don't have the branch. But the branch is really central to the neighborhood.
They're community centers.
They are,
right?
and when people are thinking about moving someplace, what are they concerned with? Schools, and they want to see if the the library. And oftentimes when they're checking out a neighborhood, they'll go to the library and get the vibe of the neighborhood there. So it really
says something positive about the town if they've got an active library with lots of hours, and that is utilized.
And here in Springfield, we have a really, the commitment to the branch system. That is one of the unique attributes. Worcester has, I think, 2 branches aside from their central branch. Similar sized city. We here in Springfield have committed to these neighborhood anchors, knowing that they really are community centers and hubs. And it's
not cheap. So hats off to the city for keeping it going.
Absolutely.
They could have taken the easy way out in the early 2000s and said, who needs 9 branches, but they didn't. They stepped up and decided we did need that
there's
many.
There's an element of democratization. There's an element of leveling the playing field. If you have a library in your neighborhood, that means your neighborhood has got more or less the same kind of resources that another neighborhood with a library has.
Right.
And I think that that's sort of important for neighborhood identity.
Yeah.
And it's also important that you have something a kid could walk to.
Yeah. Also, Mike, I think one of the things I love about the library, especially in this day and age, is there are fewer and fewer places where you meet people who aren't exactly like you. You go to a church, probably everybody looks like you. You go to a certain store, probably the store you go to, most of the people are like you. The library brings people across racial and socioeconomic backgrounds together in one place. And that is necessary for democracy. As we polarize, we need to come together more. And the library is a place where that can happen.
So in terms of, it sounds like you guys are managing the money well, but in terms of spending the money, is this based on requests from the libraries that go through the commission that then come to you in terms of consideration to fund? And is it project-based, like you want to see the details of a project or a program that someone is proposing?
Well, I think the way it works is we work hand in hand, and so I'm in the office 2 days a week, and we have so it's me and a part-time administrative assistant, and I think that's all we need for the foreseeable future until we are up to $100 million. If we get there, I'll be happy to retire.
Terrific.
Yeah. So we work closely with the library staff throughout the year, and we present to the appear before the commission a couple of times a year to tell them what we're thinking. And so we work together with library staff to figure out the pieces of the puzzle that they want to implement that won't necessarily fit into the municipal budget. And I'll give you a great example of this. So, and this, I think it strikes everything that we've been talking about. So during COVID, there was federal money that came down to the states and library systems to provide Wi-Fi hotspots, and both the devices and the data plans. They were, of course, going like hotcakes. So we got 200 here in Springfield, and I think the average, about 90 to 95% of them are out at any one given time. Last year, they were taking, so 200 Wi-Fi hotspots, you can take them out for 2 weeks. There was over 5,000 borrowings of them.
Wow.
So when you think about like one of the fundamental roles we play at the library is to cross that digital divide and provide equity. You know, it used to be you had to do it inside the four walls of the library. By taking a Wi-Fi hotspot and borrowing it, you have access to everything the library has to offer, but also everything that the internet has to offer. It was
And so the foundation is involved in it.
and so what happened?
Federal program dried up.
The funding dried up,
Sure.
but the need was still there. And so Molly and the team at the library said, would it be possible for the foundation to pick up the cost of the data plans? And so we've been doing that for the last 3 years. It's expensive. We provide $30,000 a year now to support that. But those are essential for kids at home, for people who are working. We're getting such great value from that. And, you know, you can borrow it if you're a business person going on a trip, or you can use it if you've got 3 kids at home or 2 working adults at home and your bandwidth is tight. So I think so being able to be nimble, and in the municipal budget process, that's a once a year type of issue. You know, you have to deal with the budget when the budget's coming through. We're able to be a little bit more nimble on that front, on the grants front.
Okay, and I don't know if a lot of people were aware necessarily of this feature of this program, since, and I'm sure both of you are very aware of other communities that are exploring options about municipal broadband and what the implications are, which is to give residents a choice between plans, a choice between providers, and I think as we get more into the 21st century, that particular issue will be even more important to everyone. So this is a really fantastic service. I was not aware that you have it.
Yep, and that's part of what I see our role at the foundation is to start amplifying that message and getting the word out of what the library does and what we help the library to do. So the library does fantastic. The library of today is very different from the library of our childhood. It's in the same business, information transfer and community building, but the way we do that is very, very different.
Although there still are a lot
There's
of
still a
lot of readers out there.
and particularly for kids, that's so important.
Wait lists,
So you know, and I think that's a huge emphasis both on the library side and the foundation side is how can we help continue to inspire and spark lifelong love of reading and learning. And you got to make things fun, and you have to have great resources for people.
Well, I think just based on looking at 22 years of press releases that I received from the library when I was at the Reminder, the programming at the Springfield Library System runs a huge gamut of interests. It's really astonishing everything that the library is willing to offer to not just kids, but teens and adults. It really is a fantastic public service. And I think a lot of this realization has come within the last few years with the creation of the foundation.
Oh, we hope so. That's nice to hear.
Yes.
We want to get the word out.
Because and you brought up the not so ancient history of then Mayor Ryan trying to divest the museum system from the library system, and try to get back a library for Mason Square, which was a whole interesting chapter.
That's an interesting tale, Mike, not to get into the war stories of it, but Annie Curran, who you, I'm sure, are aware of, gave $1 million, I think, way back when, to build the original Mason Square branch library. And then it was given away to the Urban League, and Annie Curran money had continued to grow, And some of the anti-current money was used again to buy that library back after the city took it by eminent domain. So you talk about the power of investing and investing over the long term. That's what our job is. It's to invest over the long term, never to spend it all quickly.
Right.
So we have a 4.5% spending rule, for example,
Yep.
which means we're never going to spend more than 4.5%.
that
Even if somebody says, you know, Rome is burning and we need it,
You've got this quantity of capital that
Yeah.
is there for the library to use in a judicious manner.
And you look at, you know, institutions like Harvard and Yale and some of the fancy prep schools, they have a lot of money because they started investing a long time ago. And, you know, some of our donors invested a long time ago, like Annie Kern, but we want to encourage more investment from current people so that future people can benefit.
Well, just over the last 3 years, we've received, I think it's four or five new bequests.
Yeah,
Significant. The largest being, it was a great story. I think we talked about it a couple of years back. Mary Brogan, who was a private eye in town.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. So she left the library. Ended up being about over $400,000, which and the reason she did it was she used the library on a daily basis in her work as a private eye. She used the reference room, every day, every week, before the digital age. And so what we've done, working with her, the executive of her estate, we created a designated fund that is going to spill off money in perpetuity to fund the reference department.
That's excellent.
And
That's an example of a restricted gift.
a restricted gift, yeah.
If you give money, you love music or a particular type of music, you can give money and designate it to be spent only for that purpose. Or you can say general purposes of the foundation and
Okay,
library.
so let's do the tag of the infomercial here, and that is, if someone's watching this and saying, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with my estate or part of my estate, and if they want to learn more about what that funding could do for their city, how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Reach out to me at Matt Blumenfeld at the Springfield Library Foundation. Go to the library website, or just call us, and happy to talk with anyone anytime about this. And
make sure it's the Springfield, Massachusetts
Springfield,
library.
that's
We've
right.
had donors who gave
To Springfield, Illinois?
Springfield, Oregon.
yeah, Springfield, Oregon. Yes, indeed. In
really?
particular, yes.
And
And there's also Springfield, Vermont.
yeah,
There's Springfield in every state.
Yes. We're the first.
Yeah. So I'm delighted to talk with anyone about this, how to make it work for you as a donor, and how to make it work for us, and how to benefit the city. So just
Excellent.
reach out anytime.
Well, thanks very much for coming on, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Great to be here.
It is wonderful.
And thanks, folks, for watching another edition of Government Matters here on Focus Springfield.